Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. On this special episode, I'm thrilled to be sharing an excerpt from my recent season opener of my podcast with Dr. Sylvain LeBlanc, the food professor. One of our most popular episodes this year, Sylvain and I interview a very special guest, Serge Boulanger, Senior Vice President, Procurement and Corporate Brands at Metro Inc. Serge talks about his rich background in marketing, sourcing, and grocery, the brand and the banner strategies for Metro, e-commerce expansion, dealing with the pandemic, and what and how Metro's experiences during COVID era has changed the way they operate and approach the business that is relentlessly customer-focused. Be sure and check out the Food Professor podcast every 2 weeks and find us on our YouTube channel for extended bonus content from each and every episode. Now, let's listen in, starting with my podcast partner, Sylvain LeBlanc.
Serge Boulanger, welcome to the Food Professor podcast. We're so happy to have you on our program, Michael and I.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Sylvain and Michael. So it's a pleasure on behalf of Metro to be with you this morning.
Well, before we go into Metro, the company you work for, we want us to have you talk about yourself, your journey, your professional journey, your career. How did you end up at Metro?
First of all, I joined Metro almost 25 years ago in 96. Previous to that, I was working in the advertising, world. But I'm also a CPA, so I'm pretty good with numbers. But I joined Metro in 96, and I was involved, I would say, almost 13 years in marketing, mostly as VP marketing for the Quebec and Ontario division, until 2009. After that, for a period of 3 years, Eric gave me the opportunity to learn and run our pharmaceutical division called McMahon and the Brunet banner in Quebec for 3 years. And since 2012, I'm running all procurement for all food and a portion of Coutu as well. Also I'm managing, some manufacturing activities that we have at Metro, including the Première Moisson, which is a artisan bread network of stores, but we also have some manufacturing facilities.
And you guys bought Première Moisson, in 2-3 years ago? Is that correct?
2015.
15 already,
yeah, 2015, wow. And we bought it from the Colpron family. And they stayed with us until 2019. So it was quite an achievement, to keep them, with us for, I'd say, almost 5 years. And so far, it's a good success, and it's a good platform to develop the bakery, business, with this, I would say, small network, as well as the expertise we bought for our own, baking products under Selection and other brands.
So you've been in your current position for almost a decade now.
Yeah, 9 years, okay. Almost 10, yeah.
That's great. Tell us about Metro. Our audience obviously is nationwide and beyond. Some people may not be familiar with Metro because it's essentially located in the eastern part of the country. Mm-hmm. What's unique about Metro? What's different at Metro? If you were to describe an experience in one of your stores, what is it like compared to your competitors?
Mm-hmm. Just to give you some idea about the size of Metro, we are basically running almost 1,000 food store, as you said, mostly in Eastern Canada. Quebec is our main market. As well as the Ontario when we bought A&P in 2005. So this is, I would say, both the biggest two market in Canada that we're involved with, and with the purchase of Coutu in 2018. So our scale of the pharmacy number of location went up now to more than 650, with some location in Ontario under Coutu and in New Brunswick. So basically we are, I would say, let's call it a major regional player in Canada, involved in food and pharma. We reached out $18 billion of sales last year. And we have basically an operating, results of around 9%, of operating incomes, which is, I would say, best in class, I think, in Canada. As for the experience, for sure, we have different banner to serve customer. The discount segment is run under the Super C and the Food Basic banner in Ontario. And as for the conventional, we have one name, Metro, that we introduced in Ontario in 2009, I think. I was involved in this, change of the banner, in 2009 as VP marketing. And I think what differentiates, Metro, it's really the customer focus that we have. We think we have 5 different customer promises that we're working closely. And each time we're working on a project, on a decision. So is it deserving, one of the customer promises that we are promising to our customer? If not, we are removing this project or not focusing on it. So it's really the focus. And this is why, we have so many strong program. If we're talking loyalty with Metro and more airlines in Ontario, we are investing a lot in the renovation of our stores, concept, including and introducing new concepts, sushi counter, Thai counter, HMR product. So I think what differentiates Metro is, and also, we have been recognized as very good operator. So as we see in retail, it's 10% strategy and 90% execution. And I think part of the Metro formula success is the operation.
Talk about, if you would, Serge, talk about Adonis. That's one of your banners that is in the. I have an Adonis close to me. Actually, it's a wonderful store, but it's not very well known. But talk about that and how that fits into your banner strategy of overall, the discount to the full line.
Yeah, as I said earlier, we are really focusing on customer, offers, and within the regular banners that we were running at the time. In 2011, we went to a partnership with the Shaib family to bought 51% of the share of the Adonis banner in order to address this new segment of Mediterranean customer, Egyptian, Lebanese, and the offer, of those stores is amazing. It's
very different.
It's very different. Usually, as you know, the ratio between grocery and fresh product is really around 50-50. The ratio of fresh product in those stores are really higher than 50%. Full service, labor-wise is asking a lot from our employees. A lot of product are prepared at store level. Yeah. So it's really a unique and different, offers and experience for the customer. And what we're trying to do is how we can import some of those products to make Metro and Super C and Food Basic banners more a destination, having special product under the Adonis or Première Moisson brands. So it's part of the formula of the of Metro, and this is what we're going to focus more and more, in the upcoming years.
I was going to say I often see, or I'm seeing more Adonis product in my local Metro, so it's a nice blend of the two. There's a couple of products I go there specifically for. They've started to appear now in the Metro, so it's a nice. And does that go both ways for you? Is that some of the opportunity? And the follow-up question to that is how all this fits in. We've talked about physical stores. Tell us a little bit about your the cross-pollinization of products between the banners, and then B, let's talk about e-commerce for a little bit as well. Tell us about that in addition to the banners.
Yeah. As for pollinization, we also started to introduce some of our private label brand, in Adonis as well. So we're making test and learn, let's call it this way, especially in the Adonis store we just opened in Quebec City. So it's part of our, I would say, test that we're doing. And as for, your question about e-com, for sure, with the pandemic and we had at the time, an e-commerce platform based on picking and packing at store level. But with the surge of the demand, we had to make quick changes. And so actually we have, I would say, different type of strategy, to address a large area, suburb or rural area. So we're trying to leverage our brick and mortar, asset, putting, the energy on the IT platform, making sure that the customer will find their product very easily. And as for the logistic behind that, it's this is the part where we are trying to be more and more efficient every day and trying to reduce, the cost of transportation, which is, I would say, one of the bottleneck, which is not easy because, as you know, the grocery business is low margin, and it's based on the fact that customers are coming, they supply the transport, they supply the manpower to prepare the orders. Right. A little bit different, when you're going into the e-com platform.
That's it's e-commerce is taking more and more space for sure, and many grocers are moving in that direction, including Metro. You've been incredibly successful with your private label business. We saw at the Canadian Grand Prix. You've won many prizes, many awards. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
From your standpoint, what are some of the trends that you're seeing right now when you're looking at the market in general? What are some of the things that your team is taking note of?
Actually, with the portfolio that we have, we have 4 very clear brand addressing, I would say, different segment with this, which is Selection, for example, which is the national brand parity with value. Irresistible is addressing, what we call the indulgent segment. Life Smart, that we just make a spin-off of the Irresistible brand because customers were a little bit, not understanding easily what the Life Smart or the Musite brand was, so we did a spin-off of it. As well as the Personnel, which is the brand of the health and beauty that we bought from Jean Coutu. So we have, I would say, a clear way to address, each segment. And I would say what we are seeing is that, for sure, private label, it's not just about value more and more, it's more and more about how we can differentiate ourselves with that. And especially with the new generation, they are less, I would say, committed to the national brand. They were more open to buy other brands, other than the national regular one. And what we are seeing, as the market is really, consumer are having 2 faces, the vortex and the cortex, you know what I mean, in the brain.
That's right.
It's that people are more and more, I would say, concerned about their health. And they want to go with plant-based product, less salt, less sugar, less, or more natural, for example. And this is why the Life Smart brand is addressing that. But at the same time, they want to treat themselves. And the Irresistible brand, which is, the indulgent brand, is doing very well. Actually, the chocolate bar at 70 to 95%, cacao percentage is going, up and up and up every month. So it's what we're seeing is that people are concerned about their health, but at the same time they want to treat themselves. And the growth actually
they want to indulge.
They indulge, and the growth we are seeing is really about those 2 segments that are Life Smart and Irresistible for the reason that I just mentioned.
Oh, it's so interesting, right? I mean, let me continue that thread of discussion. I mean, you've been at Metro, had a lot of different chairs at a lot of different tables, but you probably, I'm guessing, hadn't seen what you'd experienced in the past 18 months, something all new to all of us. Take me back, and this isn't a history lesson, but take me back to March 2020, when really, for many of you, it was dawning, the magnitude of the issue was starting to happen. What was running through your and the executive team's minds in March 2020? And where I'm going with this is, I'm going to, okay, now we're at the tail end of the pandemic. What have we learned, and what are you going to take away from it to make the company better?
Actually, it was quite an experience, because we used to have pandemic comedy. What will happen? Because many years ago we were talking about the bird flus and all that stuff.
Sure.
Nobody ever think that at one time we had to send 100% of our people mostly at home, especially on the office side. So basically, in March 2020, the pressure was coming from everywhere because, we started to feel a little bit more in advance in Ontario, the pandemic issue, because I don't know if it's because there is more Asian population and they were watching what's going on in China and all that stuff. But I would say 10 to 15 to 14 days before we started to feel in Ontario a little bit more pressure in the demand from the stores and all that stuff. And when March 13 happened in Quebec, as well as in Ontario at the same time, that they were basically closing the economy, within a few hours, there was a boom, in the stores. Everybody saw, the paper gate, the bathroom tissue issues and all that stuff. And when you have a business that it's based on a 2 to 3% growth rate per year, when you are switching 20 to 25% of consumption from within an hour to this network, it's put a lot of pressure, and it puts a lot of pressure for sure on the procurement with the supplier that I would say come back, but also with the network of stores. How we were able to make sure that the security of our employee and the customer, because going at the grocery store at the time was not funny. You were waiting in line. It was cold outside. Yeah. We were counting people. There were greeters. We were asking questions and all that stuff. So not an easy job, at store level. So the operation people were really focusing on making sure that our employees were showing up, as well as securing the customer. And I think on that side, the customer behavior was quite good because we didn't have, a lot of event that people were aggressive against our employees and stuff like that. So we were, I think Canadians, or have the reputation to be reasonable people. So I think with the job we did with our employee and making sure that our customer were, I would say, having the good behavior, I think we did a good job on that side. At the same time, I remember
do you think the public actually recognizes that grocers actually have done a good job? Probably, it was a miracle to see things happen from, say, March to May, even June. And so do you think the public actually appreciates what happened over the last several months?
I would say, I think so. I saw some results of some polls that has been made, across Canada that Canadians were trusting their grocers about the general way that we are doing business, as well as our own survey that we're doing with our customer promises. They're placed, to do some comments. And when we are seeing that people were feeling comfortable in our stores, those numbers went up, right? So I think we did a good job, and especially in a way to secure the customer that there was no way that we will not have the food available on the shelf. And there's a big TV show in Quebec every Sunday night that reached to millions of Quebecers, and our CEO Eric has been involved and invited to the show. And the first question the anchorman asked Eric was, will it be a non-availability of food in our stores or in stores? And Eric, called me a few hours before and say, "Hey, am I okay to respond? Yes." I say, "Yes, you can respond. Yes." But at the same time, a few minutes after, the guy from Honeywell called me and said, "I'm closing the plant, in one of the plant in Quebec, and the supply will be affected for a few days." So
I remember, if I remember, it was Yamashish, I think it was.
That's it. And it was the largest place of Honeywell of Quebec. So, so it was going all over the place within a few hours. And what I think we were quite successful, it's securing the customer and making sure that there was no more rush to the stores, for stockpiling from the consumer. I think the industry was good, we were good at doing that. And at the same time, even if the supplier were able to supply 100% of that demand, which was not the case, and we know why, because, switching, large format to small format, it's not an easy task, for a manufacturer. And I know that because we are running some factory ourselves. But at the same time, there was pressure on the manufacturing side, but it was really also about our own supply chain, for sure our truck was not fully full, going to the store, But there's no way that our trucks and our infrastructure, truck driver, employees in the DC, that we were able, to supply 30, 25% more volume within a few days. So some of the people said many times that the food system in Canada is broken. I don't think so. I think we did a pretty good job together with the vendors, with our supplier, partners, because no Canadian, had to stockpile, and there was no big fear about that the food in Canada was not, available for consumer. And
I know some of my academic colleagues have actually declared that. They've said that the system needs improvement, is broken, and I certainly disagreed with them. Actually, in fact, the pandemic showed that the system that we have, the industry that we have in Canada, works very well together. And so I just want to thank you, Serge, for all the work you've been doing, because I know it's been very difficult since March.
Kept food on our table.
Is it getting easier now, or where are we at right now?
I would say we're not back to the same level, okay? Because there is some product that there's lack of raw material, for example, coming from outside Canada, and it's not clear to the customer, for example, that most of our cereal, for example, are coming from the U.S. right now, So there's so we're not back for many different reasons. For sure, the lack of employees, of labor in some manufacturing area, it's not easy. So there's many reasons that we're not back. But we're in a way better position, and it's a pocket of product. Let's call it this way: that the cleaning industry is not back to the same level, for example.
Right.
And sometimes, for example, in our private brands, because we were able with our partner to have a better service level than the national brand. Sometimes, I would say most of the times. Now the volumes on the private brand is higher than it was before, so we have to adjust. But I would say we are within 1 to 2%, at the service level we were before the pandemic.
Let me ask this question about the organization. I've spoken to many senior leaders like yourself and asked if the pandemic has reoriented in any way the organization between the sense of agility and building an organization that can move quickly versus an organization that is, planned out to the penny. I mean, large grocers like yourselves have comprehensive planning to get that food on the shelf, and it's quite comprehensive. Is that mix for Metro changed with the perspectives around we just don't know what comes next and something else could come next? So have you between agility and between planning, do you think that the experience of the pandemic will change that mix a little bit for Metro?
I would say I think we are more agile than when we were before. Adjusting to peak demand, for example. So for sure, it's a highly promotional business, with flyers and all that stuff, and people are reacting for that. So we were having, that type of agility during the pandemic. The percentage of sales made on the promotion went down because people were shopping once at a time, not going to many different banners to do their shopping. So, and the lack of availability, on promotional item was sometimes also an issue. So as for the offer and managing the volume, that stuff, after, the big surge, we were able, to manage that, I would say, with the vendors, I would say in a not a perfect way, but I would say in an okay way. Where I think we develop more agility is how we're going in the new normal, how we're going to operate. E-com, we talked about it, a little bit. What will be the percentage of the sale in Canada? Going forward, your crystal ball, it's as much good as mine. The growth slow down for sure. People tend to go back to some of their regular behavior, but because I think now people they want to reconnect. And we're seeing that, actually in the consumer, the number of transactions going up, the basket size going a little bit down, because I think people want to reconnect in their personal life as well as in their professional life, And
they're generally feeling safer. I mean, as the percentage of the vaccinated goes up, they can linger. They feel like they can linger a little longer in the store and go more often, right?
And I think there's two major things that will change. I think the enterprise also took taste about, reducing their cost of transportation, using video and all that stuff. More and more, maybe food shows and all that stuff will be in part virtual or something like that. As well as people will more teleworking. They will stay more at home, not consuming their food at the restaurant or having breakfast, early in the morning with the supplier or with a colleague. So this is the kind of stuff that we're looking at and try to figure it out. How the market will stay a little bit more, I think, in the grocery business instead of in the hotel and restaurant and institution. So this 25% that I refer, 25 to 30%, how long it will take to go back to a normal level, and what will be this normal level? Will it be 20, 25%? We don't know, but I think down the road, there will be a portion that will stay within the grocery industry. But 9/11 at the time, we were thinking that nobody will, travel after that. Yeah. And within 10 years, the volume of flight was even higher than before the 9/11.
Well, let me ask you this question, and I'll pass it to Savant for our final question. A lot of your merchants would be on the road, traveling around the world, going to trade shows everywhere, finding the best, nicest, unique items. Are you changing your perspective around doing that virtually versus in person, or do you see them going back on the road collectively as much as they did before? Like, do you struggle to discover new brands, or is that kind of adapted itself and you may not go back to the same level of travel for the merchants? What's your perspective on that?
I would say, I think we will go back on the road. Maybe not at the same level, but for sure, food remains an industry that you have to feel the product, taste the product, talk with the suppliers, especially in the fresh industry. We started a process many years ago during our own importation of produce all over the world. Last year, for example, we imported for more than 31 different countries, direct with the grower, from Costa Rica to different country. And my people are, I would say, asking more and more where I'm going to be able, when I'm going to have, the authorization to go back and see my grower of pineapple in Costa Rica. So we're going to go back.
You can't make those. It's hard to make those decisions in a hotel room, seeing some product, right? Particularly in your food. It's walking the plant floor. It's going to the vendor and really seeing their operation, right? You really want to get behind the screen, so to speak, and walk those fields and know the people, right? You're in the food business, right? It's a very personal business, yeah.
It's as I said, during the pandemic, our private label brand, the development of product was still going on, but they had to regroup, usually it's on Monday morning, to approve packaging, because you cannot approve the color and the plastic or the packaging, material, over a computer. So people were getting, in the office with some rules, and they were touching the product and they were approving the color and all that stuff, because, we had to continue to develop our business. I think that's why we're so successful with our packaging, for example. And we have, a good recognition for the market. But in the food business, our people have to show up at the store to serve customer. They have to show up in the DC to prepare the orders. And most of our employees have to show up, in the office, to develop product, meet suppliers, go on the road, see the factory, how they control, their operation, even, the ESG, the ESG rules that are more and more, I would say, people are asking how we are doing our business. So going in the factory and see how they work, it's pretty
important. It's pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's very critical. So.
I'm having lunch today with Xavier Poncin, the CEO of Cial.
Yeah, I know Xavier pretty well, yeah.
Talk about a guy who's frustrated with Zoom and MS Teams and everything else. To your point, Serge, really to transact, to feel food, you can't do it over Zoom. It's impossible. And so he's certainly looking forward to have people on the floor and tasting and experiencing food next year. It's not going to happen this year, but next year for sure. And hopefully I'll see you there at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And at other events as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to bring back, a good handshake with some of our main supplier, as well as going to many food shows that I used to go in Berlin, for example, and which is the platform Fruit Logistica for produce and all that stuff. We just launched a few days ago with the participation of the BBC. A video showing how we are working at Metro with growers of, for example, pineapple that Angel mentioned, and Maersk, which is, a large cargo ship operator. Yeah. So I'm going to send you, the link of that, and maybe you can share it with your group of people who are listening to the podcast. But it's showing well how the procurement of fresh produce is it's well managed, within our organization.
Well, listen, Serge, on behalf of myself and Michael, we want to thank you very much for participating, coming onto our podcast. It was a great talk, great discussion. We learned a lot about Metro, and hopefully 2021, the rest of the year in 2022 will be less eventful for all of us.
Yeah. Thank you, Sylvain, for the invitation, and thank you, Michael, as well.
Thank you.
Anytime you need to bounce and have some ideas or discuss, anything about, the food industry, I will be happy, to talk with you again.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Voice of Retail. Be sure and follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts so you don't miss out on the latest episodes, industry news, and insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating review, as it really helps us grow so that we continue to get amazing guests onto the show. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of LeBlanc Company Inc. And if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at meleblanc.co. Until next time, stay safe, have a great week.